normalmente 5번에서 내쉬고. How are you? Good to see you. Cha, good to see you. Good. How are you? Thank you, Mia. Thank you for coming. You are very well. Great. From Radio Global. Thank you very much. It's great to meet you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So how it's going? Daddy Emmanuel was with her coming in there. Excited to see you. And you're such an inspiration.
No.
Yeah, we're looking forward now to what the inequalities or the vision
We propose the agenda. Yes, I tell you the memorandum. We are going to sign. Yes. Majid is here. Yes.
Yes, I was told to come.
Yes, he's here.
Thank you that very much. Can you take my sister? Yes, I'll share it with my sister.
Oh, yeah. So nice. The president finds
30% population only existed. Now it is 90%. And ID card. Aadhaar ID, identity card.
Oh, it's a great example. So, we will award them tomorrow.
I will take a photo for you.
Okay.
Yes,
We'll take a photo and then we'll.
Can you do vertical as well, please? Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you so much. Ну ладно.
Yeah, идемте. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Presentation. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you.
I think Peter.
Yes.
Peter.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
I mean, you have to go.
You have to say, if you don't think reality can be changed, you don't mobilize to change it.
The reality
It's very, very difficult. Nothing will happen automatically. That's what
absolutely. I fully agree. But unfortunately, the world is going in a different direction.
That's it. The political consulting starts.
Glad to see you again.
Glad to see you too.
How was Dubai?
I think that they will some restrictions.
Sorry.
Yeah. Especially the money side.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, that had a lot of money.
Hello. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you? I saw you in the distance.
How are you?
Fantastic.
Yeah,
So
well,
good to see you.
so
Thank
good
you
to
for
see
being
you.
here.
Yes, thank you.
We miss you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm back now. Could I introduce you to the Secretary of State?
Nice to meet you. We are very close to Cambodia.
Yeah,
because of the ambassador.
He did a great job.
I'm back in capital now, but I'm here back and forth. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And thank you very much for coming. This is very important. You know, in the voice of countries is very important.
Yeah, and thank you for having us on the session with us yesterday. We did it.
Yes.
It was good.
Yes, I heard. I couldn't be here yesterday because it was the trade day in Dubai, in the fall. So the first time that trade had that trade day. So yes, never before.
It's very popular.
Yes, it's very important. That's what I say. But we were not heard until now. But so good to see you.
But your remark was great. Very animated. during the opening.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love it.
How can, I had to compensate, not
Yeah.
because.
Oh, yeah.
So I moved.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Very great personality. I love your color.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
To start our session in about 10 seconds. So if everyone could sit down, that would be fantastic. Okay. No problem. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry to rush everybody, but if I could get you to take your seats, and I think that's me. So welcome everybody to this session where we are going to be building on a lot of what we have been discussing already, which is fantastic, because this roundtable will be looking at issues of the shift of focus when it comes to e-trade, and we're going to look at what really defines the partnership we were talking about when it comes to e-trade for all partners. So this is a forward-looking session. We want to find out how we can best leverage the strengths of the e-trade for all partners in order to forge new and innovative ways of working together. So as you can see, these were issues that were broached earlier on, and we're going to build them up now. Because we want to look at how best to effectively build on what's been achieved, and then also outline priority actions and strategies to reinforce cooperation and achieve inclusive and sustainable development gains for those developing economies in the short, medium, and also the long term. So let me please introduce our wonderful panel here, and we have some speakers joining us, well, one speaker joining us remotely. But on the stage, and do give a little wave when I mention your name so people can identify you, we have Jose Manuel Salazar Zirinax, who is the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. Welcome. Remotely, we are joined by Carlos Maria Correa. Now, he is the Executive Director of the South Center. We're also joined by Jovan Kurbalia, who is the Executive Director of the Diplo Foundation. Hello there. Edward Kwaka, who is the Assistant Director General of Global Challenges and Partnership Sector at the World Intellectual Property Organization. Hassan Nasser, who is the Chief of Cabinet of the DCO. And of course, Rebecca Greenspan, who is the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. And on that note, I would like to invite Rebecca Greenspan to make a few opening remarks.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much to all the panelists. So they were presented, so I won't go through all of you, but I am really honored to have you in this panel. Thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you to all of you, dear friends, for accompanying us in this e-week. I am really pleased to welcome you all to this second E-Trade for All Leadership Roundtable, whose focus is the role of partnerships in delivering an inclusive and sustainable digital future. As we discussed in the previous roundtable, the rapid pace of technological advancement presents unparalleled opportunities for growth and development. But at the same time, it also poses significant challenges, particularly in ensuring equal access and benefits for all. We know that the gaps, as we said before, are very large. The theme of our roundtable underscores the importance of collaborative efforts. We are here to explore how governments, private sector entities, international organizations, civil society, and academia can work together more effectively to make the digital economy a space for everyone. The premise of this discussion is the recognition that the digital divide is not just a national issue. It is a global challenge that requires coordinated efforts across borders and stakeholders. Take data, for example. Data emanates from households, consumers, and citizens. This data is then collated and stored in databases and reside, depending on the country, in companies, state organisms, or regulatory bodies. But the journey of data doesn't stop at storage. It is further processed and analyzed. This stage is where a select group of a few private companies comes into play. They employ sophisticated software to mine this data for valuable insights and intelligence. The development of such software, while commercially executed, typically has its roots in academic research, in universities and institutions, through programs that are well-funded, either by companies themselves, but also in not a small part by financial institutions, philanthropies, and the state. In essence, then, the digital economy is already a multi-stakeholder affair, and so much be its policy, and so must be its policy and conversation. So, Your Excellencies, we are holding this event at the heart of Geneva, a city that has become a global hub for the digital and development discourse. This session has a very strong representation of Geneva-based organizations. Geneva is clearly positioned at the crossroads of international cooperation where ideas meet action. Today, we also benefit from the presence of organizations based elsewhere. Here we are joined by leaders from almost all regions in the world. Your presence here today and throughout the week underscores the importance of regional perspectives in shaping global digital strategies. We recognize that the path to digital inclusivity is not uniform. It varies across geographies, and it is imperative that we tailor our approaches to each unique context. And last but not least, We are meeting today under the common banner of E-Trade for All, our common home and family. None of us is as smart as all of us together. Is the unwritten motto of the E-Trade for All community, which recognizes that the task ahead is not just about harnessing technology, it's about connecting the dots between policy, practice, businesses, and people. By joining the E-Trade for All initiative, you have all exemplified this collaborative spirit, advocating for comprehensive, cross-cutting approaches to e-commerce and digital trade. I am proud to say that the E-Trade for All initiative is alive and kicking. Since it was launched at UNCTAD 14 in Nairobi in 2016, barely 7 years ago, its membership has grown from 14 to 35 members. As many as 28 of them are present here today in DC Week. Let me share a few of the collective achievements that we should all be proud of in the e-trade community and that show the value of partnerships in the digital economy. Thanks to the E-Trade for All initiative, we have been able to develop with the UN Capital Development Fund and UNDP the Pacific Digital Economy Program, which is now supported by Australia, the European Union, and New Zealand. The Diplo Foundation, a long-standing partner, is bringing you the AI reporting with a touch of human flavor still, that you will discover throughout the week. Diplo is also working with us to pioneer some youth consultation with my team and the UNCTAD Youth Network. Thank you very much. With WIPO, our two organizations have been fostering synergies for women digital entrepreneurs with IP-targeted support and a tailored program in the context of the E-Trade for Women initiative. Thanks to E-Trade for All, we were able to develop with ECLAC and other regional commissions a core training course on e-commerce, which is running online just as we speak. More than 300 policymakers from 28 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean are deep diving into the key policy aspects of e-commerce for development. Finally, allow me here to also welcome the Digital Cooperation Organization, our newest partner to the initiative. We also count on you to help us achieve our highest goals. The list, of course, does not stop. I could continue like this for almost every partner attending here today and throughout the week. I am only highlighting those who are here at this roundtable. Also, since time is of the essence, I am very eager to get this roundtable started. So, Excellencies, thank you again very much for being with us. The task ahead us is huge. I said before, nothing will happen automatically. It will depend on what we do for the digital economy to really be an opportunity for all, or for the digital economy to deepen on the gaps that already divide the world. It depends on us and what we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Secretary General. And as you say so rightly, it is really down to us, to the people in the room, to those partner members of the E-Trade for All. And you quite rightly pointed out, the regional perspectives and how important it is to have those voices. So in that respect, I'd like to turn to Mr. Salazar Zirinax from ECLAC. Because, if we consider the challenges that Latin America and the Caribbean is facing, could you tell us how ECLAC is collaborating, because that is the key word, how ECLAC is collaborating with member states and regional partners to ensure that digital advancements contribute significantly to economic and social development in the region? I'm sorry, I can't see you, but hello.
That's right. Thank you very much, and it's an enormous pleasure to be here. We have, in fact, been working tremendously, very strong, with many partners on this, and I'll explain to you in a moment. But let me say that I'm very pleased to be here at UNCTAD, led by my longtime friend and fellow Costa Rican, Rebecca Greenspan. Secondly, because UNCTAD is an organization with which I have worked for many years, including editing a book when I was at the ILO here in Geneva in 2014, entitled Transforming Economies, Making Industrial Policy Work for Growth, Jobs and Development, with Richard Kozul, who's still at UNCTAD. And thirdly, because we have a common father figure and genetic code, which is Mr. Raúl Prebisch, and both organizations have a long history of contributing to the theory and practice of economic development. But I am particularly pleased because of the theme of this meeting. The digital revolution is disrupting and transforming production processes and paradigms and business models. The future is digital, and the longer countries take to increase not only access, but the smart and massive uses of digital applications and opportunities, the more they will delay taking advantage of their enormous benefits and the larger the possibilities and probabilities that they lag behind. And of course, with all the inequalities and so on, that is also the negative, the dark side of this, if you like. The challenge is that the pace of the digital and other technological revolutions is faster that we as human beings and our institutions seem to be able to understand and to adapt to. And the impacts range from huge potential for development to high risks, exacerbated inequalities, labor market and other disruptions. And therefore, the conversations of this week on shaping the future of the digital future are extremely important, and certainly strong partnerships and collective efforts are essential. So how do we work and how can we further collaborate at ECLAC, at CEPAL, with member states and other partners? Well, let me start by telling you that in the digital transformation, we have been supporting governments in designing and implementing policies to harness the full potential of digital technologies. And this is something that we have been doing for at least 2 decades, if not more. We have a regional platform for knowledge exchange and capacity building, bringing together governments, international organizations, and private stakeholders. Most of these activities are carried out under the umbrella of the Ministerial Conference on the Information Society and the Digital Agenda for Latin America and the Caribbean. And this digital agenda and this conference, we call it for short ELAC. ELAC for Latin America and the Caribbean. ELAC has developed a regional digital agenda during the last 16 years with meetings every 2 years. The last meeting, the 8th of ministers and authorities responsible for digital transformation, was held a year ago in Uruguay, and the next one is scheduled for next year, 2024. This agenda consolidates a shared vision about the role of digital technologies in developing, defining and pursuing regional strategic objectives. This process has enabled various technical cooperation activities, has created a space for multi-stakeholder policy dialogue, including a side forum with the private sector, which in fact we would like to strengthen. In our work, ECLA has been collaborating with various partners. These partnerships have enabled many activities such as training, especially tailored for governments, supporting the assessment of the progress by each country, improving some of the indicators, which is a very crucial area about progress or lack of progress, evaluation of regulatory frameworks and other issues. Also, we have been working with other international organizations in projects to access critical information for development policies. For example, we built a freely accessible dashboard called the Latin American and Caribbean Marketplace Explorer, the LACME, which shows SMEs to explore key trends and characteristics of almost 3,000 online marketplaces in the region. We are going to very soon launch a new digital development observatory, that is the name, which provides access to numerous indicators and abundant information about technology adoption across many sectors and the respective policies behind these developments. Despite all these efforts, the demands of our countries are enormous, and there is an enormous amount of work to do, of course. Digital issues are becoming more complex and require closer cooperation at both the regional and international level. issues from cybersecurity, tax policy, data protection, consumer protection, regulation of new technologies, including, of course, artificial intelligence. For this reason, new cooperation spaces, such as the recently launch of the Digital Alliance between the EU and Latin America and the Caribbean, with which we are very, very strongly involved, and the E-Trade for All partnership, and others that, based on this platform, we could create, are most welcome and have a very, very important role to play. And I think we're going to talk a little bit afterwards about governance, because a lot of this also requires improvements in governance at the national level. Given the multidimensional nature of this challenge, you know, we come from a tradition of top-down government, vertical, and what this technological revolution needs is a very different type of kind of coordination and governance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And on that issue of governance, yes, you're absolutely right. We will be broaching that, and I know that you will have some very insightful kind of contributions on that matter. But really, when we're talking about, you know, the future being digital, it has to be a future that brings in everybody. And for that to happen, there has to be the possibility to ensure that everyone is equipped with the digital skills necessary. So with that in mind, I would like to now speak to Carlos Maria Correa, who is the Executive Director of the South Centre, and he is joining us remotely. I don't know if he's going to pop up on the screen behind me, but hopefully he can hear me now. And what we'd like to know is, how is the South Centre actually advocating for those skills and policies that do address the widening gaps in digital access and skills? Because if that isn't done, how can we ever ensure that the benefits of the digital economy are distributed equitably among various countries, regions, and communities? And
yes, can you hear me?
Hello, welcome. Nice to hear you.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much for the invitation to participate at this important meeting. Your question is very relevant indeed. I'm very sorry I have not been able to be with you in person today. But of course, the South Centre as an intergovernmental organization is addressing development challenges which are posed by the digital economy. We work, as you know, in the area of international trade, investment, intellectual property, and many other areas. In fact, there were a program that was adopted by the board of the South Centre for 2023-2025, incorporated explicitly the issue of digital transformation. The Centre produces policy-oriented research in this regard, supports developing countries' international negotiations, and provides technical assistance and training. As it was mentioned already, the digital economy has the potential to contribute a lot to development in many areas, such as health, education, increasing productivity in some sectors, but also presents many challenges, such as in terms of job creation, inequality, technological dependence, and marginalization of the most vulnerable. We have published a number of analyses on these issues. Two of the most recent publications by the South Centre are in fact on digital education, by the former UN Special Rapporteur on the right to education, and on digital health by experts from the Commission on Science and Technology for Sustainable Development in the South. This is a good example of partnership of the South Centre with other organizations. During this week, we are organizing 2 sessions that will address several issues which are very relevant for developing countries, to address some of the issues that you have raised, including digital health, governance of artificial intelligence, e-commerce, artificial intelligence regulations, and human rights. Our staff will also participate in other sessions addressing digital divide in Africa, the digital trade in Asia, digital infrastructure for sustainable development, and the digital space accelerator. So we're very thankful for this invitation. I hope I have the opportunity to expand a little on what the South Centre is doing in these areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution there. Now let's take a step into the future, and it's not even the future, it's the present really. If we look at artificial intelligence, it's already part of our lives, but when it comes to the future of the digital economy and whether we can harness it for the greater good, that is really very much up in the air right now. So we do know that it's going to play a transformative role. Jovan Kobilia has here been at the forefront of trying to harness AI for the greater good, and I can only imagine it can be quite a challenge at times. But how do you see international cooperation and diplomatic efforts in that space? You know, how are they being leveraged now? And we've heard some of our speakers touch on this, but you know, in terms of ethical, regulatory, and also the very important societal implications of AI.
Thank you, Isabel. This is the really question which has been discussed in media and everywhere, and I will answer it with two aspects. One is AI as a topic, governance topic, and the other is AI as a tool. And I will link you also to the topic of this session, which is a partnership. There is African saying that if you want to move fast, you move alone. If you want to move far, you move with the others. And it would be basically the message of partnership around addressing these AI issues. And I have a concrete example. This meeting is, in a way, historical meeting, because this is the first meeting where you have detailed reports from every session available within 1 hour after the end of the session. You can find it on the website, and you can find it on other places with the key arguments that were advanced by our past panelists, questions asked by you, and supporting facts. Now, how did this tool, which is a really fascinating tool, came into the being? By human contact, by discussion with the UNCTAD team, Torbjörn and other colleagues. And yes, we move fast alone in the African saying, but then we brought gradually other colleagues on the board. Therefore, you have suddenly breakthrough in the way how meetings are run and organized without being fanfare. We decided to do it in very, let's say, Geneva Protestant style, functionally. But it is a historical breakthrough. And it was done exactly in this way. Few people with whatever you call it, beer-to-beer or coffee-to-coffee or tea-to-tea network or peer-to-peer, if they say today, getting together and say, hey, we can experiment with this, how we can do. Then there was a practical problem. I run a very small foundation, very agile startup organization, and for us it's always complexity to engage in big processes, administrative processes, which are sometimes the case of the UN organization. Therefore, then the colleagues from UNCTAD called Omadier Foundation and said, let's do agile linkages and tripartite cooperation between us. This is the first point, how this partnership can be developed. But on your question about the governance and topic, how we address, I would highlight 3 points. First, we need a bottom-up AI. If we don't develop bottom-up AI, including this very meeting, we are generating knowledge today in discussions here, in corridors, in cafes. That knowledge belongs to us personally, to UNCTAD, to your organization and your countries. If we upload that knowledge into the big system, whatever they are, we are risking ultimately, which I sometimes call knowledge slavery. Therefore, bottom-up AI is a critical issue for the vitality of the humanity, for preservation on the human dignity, for preservation on democracy, market economy, and trade at the end of the day. Now, we are often told that it's not possible to do open AI, open source AI, not open AI, let me be precise. It is possible. And we should preserve our data and our knowledge by using open source and high quality data. There are a few countries, and I would highlight the Gulf region as a very interesting place where the open source AI is developed. In Saudi Arabia, in Emirates with Falcon project. Therefore, it's a very interesting dynamics coming from the Middle East in that respect, in this knowledge innovation. Therefore, this is the first point. Bottom-up AI, preserving our knowledge, whether it is the knowledge of the small farmers in Zimbabwe or whatever place, this knowledge has been gathered over the centuries, and it should not be centralized. It should be preserved and kept and owned by the farmer. I'm reading Zimbabwe, but it could be any country around. This is the first point. second point is that for governance of AI, we need to use SDGs. In all events, we have discussion is how to use AI to achieve SDGs, poverty reduction, gender equality, and other issues. But SDGs are the most direct, concrete, and specific codification of priorities of humanity. From poverty reduction, gender, climate, you have the list. Why we don't use SDGs as something that will guide developers of AI? You have indicators, you have specificities. Why we don't put SDGs to the desks of the AI developers which are developing AI platforms? This is somehow completely missed aspect of SDGs. And third point on AI governance, back to your question, Isabel, is what type of risks we are managing. We are often in media faced with extinction risk. And it is a very dangerous argument. Yes, there are certain risks that AI will destroy us. But those are risks, like any other risk, put somewhere far in the future. We have other risks. We have medium-term risks, which are monopolies of big companies and big setups, which is, in my view, a huge risk. And we have short-term risks. Risks of the losing jobs, risks of the, let's say, misinformation generated by AI, and many, many issues that we are familiar with. Therefore, when we discuss AI, we have to put these three risks in perspective. What is long-term risk? Let us discuss it through precautionary principle. We have a lot of instruments from climate change field. Let us discuss also monopolies as medium-term risk. And let us discuss short-term risks. Therefore, that would be the message for AI governance. We can speak about concrete institutions, bottom-up AI as a way to solving and preserving our knowledge and protecting, B, using SDGs as guidelines for development of AI, and 3, putting the risks into perspective, long-term, medium, and short-term risks.
Thank you very much. And when you talk about artificial intelligence, you feel you could just kind of actually pull the whole session around that issue, because there is so much to discuss there, and there will be sessions focusing on AI, rest assured. But what's interesting is that your answer, in some respects, answered Mr. Salazar-Zirinak's question about top-down governance of AI when you're talking about a bottom-up approach. So there are a lot of ideas here in the room. And when it comes to artificial intelligence as well, we've got to think about intellectual property rights. You can't not open a newspaper these days without actually looking at topics like that. And when it comes to intellectual property rights, well, that's your domain. And I'm not going to talk to you about AI just yet. But, what is WIPO doing now to facilitate and strengthen the linkages between intellectual property rights and the digital landscape without stifling innovation, protecting digital assets, ensuring a fair balance between the creators, between the consumers, and all the many other stakeholders that we have been evoking today and yesterday when it comes to the digital economy, including women? So it's quite a question there.
Thank you very much. Yes, that is quite a question. Let me start by thanking UNCTAD for inviting. We say WIPO rather than WIPO.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. For the simple reason, one of our previous directors general said, WIPO sounds too much like a cleaning product. So we just say WIPO. Thanks for inviting WIPO to participate in this, especially because, well, we happen to be a partner of the E-Trade for All initiative. And this particular E-Week is again highlighting various subjects that are of interest to us at WIPO. So I'll come straight to your point. And by the way, let me also extend the regards of my boss, the Director General of WIPO. He's very interested to know UNCTAD is running these programs, specifically because of what we have done with UNCTAD. Now, you talked about intellectual property, and I think we all know intellectual property is the fulcrum of a digital system if we are talking about a digital system. We are talking about innovators, we are talking about creators, and we are talking about ensuring that their assets are effectively tapped to good use. So we all see the value of intellectual property. WIPO is out on a mission to show the intellectual property system needs to be a balanced system. So it's not just a matter of seeing to the interests of those who own the intellectual property, but we are also making sure we see to the interests of those who use it, the demanders as well as the owners. That way we have a balanced IP system. In terms of what we are doing specifically, we have several examples to mention, but Madam Moderator, one that comes to mind immediately, I can mention a scoping study that we started in January 2022. This is a study in which we focused on creative industries in 4 countries, 2 in Latin America, 2 in Asia. So this was Chile, Indonesia, the United Arab Emirates, and Uruguay. And what we did was we built capacity to use intellectual property tools so they could add value to better, or just to build better networks. In these 4 specific countries, we have since extended it to other countries and other continents. We now have it in a couple of African countries. We've gone to Asia Pacific as well. And that's what we are trying to do, to use intellectual property as a concrete tool to show what we can arrive at. I should say, in addition, we are promoting or we are publishing reports and studies, including one on a patent database we call Patent Scope. We also have in WIPO a global innovation index that ranks about 140 countries in terms of their innovation capabilities. Through one accident or the other, that global innovation index, Switzerland has been #1 the last 10 years. And it's not because they are the host state of WIPO, but it simply shows they have an innovation system that qualifies to merit recognition. So I think I'll stop here, and of course, I'll be happy to elaborate some more on this. Thank you.
We shall be definitely getting you to elaborate some more, rest assured. Now, let's turn to the most recent E-Trade for All partner, and that is the Digital Cooperation Organization. Now, it joined in 2022, December 2022, so basically just a year ago, in fact. And you're one of the only international organizations that has digital cooperation at its core. So your role is vital. So can you tell us a little bit how international collaboration, from your perspective, can contribute to shaping a digital future that is inclusive and benefits everyone?
I'll do. Thank you very much for that question. And first of all, of course, I would like to extend our thank notes to UNCTAD, all the e-week, and all the partners of E-Trade for All. It's a real pleasure to be here for the first time. As you said, we are a new organization. And I would like to elaborate on the comment of another panelist regarding going far or going fast. I think the digital economy today forces us to go fast and far. So we really need to make sure we can address the challenges coming to our way in a very agile way. And I think we can say that's the reason why the DCO was founded in 2021, headquartered in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and bringing together 15 member states today from Asia, Africa, Middle East, and Europe. The membership is still open, and that's the sense of cooperation. So if I have to answer your question, how digital cooperation can help to build an inclusive and sustainable digital economy. The mission of the organization is to enable digital prosperity for all. So I think all words are important here. And that's part of the mandate which is defined in the charter of the organization. So clearly at the core, we try to bring together governments. That's the first element. We need this leadership to be clearly designed with a clear direction, prosperity for all, aligned with SDGs, as mentioned before, recognizing the specificity of each member state, recognizing the needs of each economy to develop and to reach digital maturity. The other element is the inclusivity of the partnership and the dialogue. From the beginning, as part of the DCO discussions, we have observers from the private sector. We have today 22 non-government observers, private sector companies, civil society, academia, who are part of the discussion to design the solution that we want to develop to focus on three main areas of the digital economy. The question of data, how to build cross-border data, how to get value out of data. The question of entrepreneurship, how to help startups to grow, how to help startups to find investment, how to help startups to go cross-border. And the question of human-centric digital economy or digital ecosystem in terms of sustainability, ethics, compliance. For these three topics, we are bringing together, again, a multi-sectorial, multilateral, and let's say multi-level engagement. During this e-week, we will continue this multi-stakeholders engagement. We have a roundtable coming at the end of the week. During all the year, the DCO will conduct what we call the Digital Space Accelerator, where we really bring together stakeholders from different regions, outside the member country, outside the observer, to identify solutions based on the diagnostic that we have also co-created together. So that's really the process. It's not, of course, the only solution, but that's what we are trying to do, again, to move fast and far together to build and to enable digital prosperity for all.
Thanks so much, because I think, and that's a message that's coming through again and again, is the importance of this multi-level, multi-stakeholder engagement when it comes to creating an inclusive digital space. Now, we do have a video address from Murad Wahba, who is the officer in charge at the United Capital Development Fund. Now, before we move into our second round of questions, I'd like to have this video address, and that will almost provide us a hinge to get into our next round of conversation.
Secretary General Rebecca Greenspan, my dear friend, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends all. It is a great privilege for me to address you today at the E-Trade for All Leadership Roundtable during e-commerce week. I'm truly sorry that I am not with you, but duty in New York calls me. I am, however, extremely interested not only in the debate, but also in the conclusions and recommendations coming out of this meeting. We have long recognized in our efforts to meet the SDGs the importance of partnerships. And today I want to focus on that. I would like to discuss partnerships with you, not only in the digital era, which is essential for all, but also in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals that cannot be done single-handedly by either governments or private sector or NGOs or the international organizations. They can only be achieved through a partnership. SDG 17 is essential. What does that mean concretely? And how do we advance partnerships in UNCTF? First, I believe that we work with all governments, not only in least developed countries, but primarily in least developed countries, but we work with all governments to assess their readiness for the digital age. In the Inclusive Digital Economy Scorecard, for instance, we have a policy tool designed to assist policymakers in assessing the inclusivity of their policies for their economy's digital transformation. The scorecard is used now in 25 countries and was developed by UNCTF together with European Commission, GSMA, UNDESA, UNDP, but of course with you in UNCTAD. Each organization contributed its unique data sets, its expertise, aiding in the development of the scorecard. Another example we have is the Pacific Digital Economy Program. We've done this together with UNCTAD and with UNDP. And we are jointly implementing it to support growth of an inclusive digital economy in the Pacific region. By doing this together, as partners, we are able to combine our expertise on digital finance, together with your extensive work, you UNCTAD, and deep knowledge in this area of e-commerce, while the program benefits from the administrative support of UNDP. Supported by the governments of Australia, New Zealand, and by the European Union, the program combines research, capacity building, and technical assistance for all stakeholders in the digital economy, be they from the public sector or from the private sector. So how does this affect the principal recipients, the Pacific Islanders? Recently, the program conducted surveys on digital finance, and the first reports have been published for Fiji and Samoa, with more to come for the other countries in the region. The report for Fiji, for example, will inform a redesign of the national curriculum for financial education. And we're working on that with the Ministry of Education. It will include aspects such as cybersecurity, the use of social media, mobile banking, and will equip Fijians from an early age with the necessary skills to engage responsibly in this digital economy. Both of these examples, the earlier of the digital scorecard, the current one on the digital PDP program in the Pacific, show how we collaborate and engage in partnerships, complementing each other's expertise, contributing to the development of digital economies that are truly inclusive. And that is why we are proud partners of the E-Trade for All initiatives led by UNCTAD. Thank you.
Thank you for that really important intervention there, again emphasizing this importance of multi-stakeholder partnership. So let's delve into that a little bit now, and we're going to define new ways forward. Now, sadly, we have half an hour left, so our interventions are going to have to be snappy. So let me turn to you again, because I want to focus on the LATAM region and the Caribbean. So what strategic initiatives have you seen that work, that navigate the future of the digital economy successfully? Because we've heard of a number of initiatives already, but ones that ensure economic growth, but very importantly, social inclusion. Can you give us a couple of examples, no more?
Yes. Well, I'm afraid I cannot, it's difficult. We have, at Database, we have a lot of relationship with many, partners and so on. I would say, for instance, one decision that countries need to take is, in many cases, the governance is in charge of a Ministry of Science and Technology or an authority of digital transformation. However, other countries, the list of them actually, have like a czar or a chief of digital transformation very close to the office of the president. I think those schemes have worked, a little bit better to the extent that, the chief of state, the head of state, also gives a lot of emphasis to this, because they are able to convene the different ministries and the different agencies easier than one single ministry can do. So I would say that, that those are cases, and that is an issue of governance that has to be seen. In terms of the connectivity of the digital infrastructure, there are many different approaches. There's no single approach to financing. Some countries have foundations, some countries have different schemes to do private-public partnerships. But we know that still the gaps in Latin America and the Caribbean, purely in terms of the connectivity infrastructure, are major, are very large. Then I would say something not so much like a good experience, but I would like to take this opportunity to say that even if you have very strong infrastructure and connectivity, which is not really the case in most countries, you would have, in terms of the inequality challenge and the inequality of access, a big problem in terms of the lower income groups. And this is why we have proposed a basic, this concept of a basic digital basket. The basic digital basket would be basically a subsidy. You can also mobilize, private sector funds to be able to pay to the poorest households the cost of connectivity, the internet service provider, and the tablet or computer for the equipment in the household. Because even, if you're a poor household, and even if you have fiber optic at your doorstep, which is not the case in a large majority, a high proportion, you will not be able to buy the internet service provider, and you will not have the equipment. So this idea of an internet service provider, as part, if you like, of social policy, as part of productive development policy, as part of modernization, as part of education policy, because this is access for children as well in the houses and so on, and we think this is an absolutely key measure that we should, and as partners, begin to, consider and find ways of making a reality of financing and working with governments hand in hand on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, because that is a really valuable measure and a very important point that you make, that even if you have a great digital infrastructure, that doesn't mean that digital divides don't exist and that work does need to be done. Let's look at how these different groups now interplay with each other. Now, we're hearing from Yoban Kabir, and he was saying, well, he comes from a very small NGO. But what role do think tanks, like yourselves, like other NGOs, big or small, how do they work in terms of shaping those policies that will promote a fair and equitable digital future?
Sure. Well, Isabella, I think the purpose of the small organization in this ecosystem is to bring new issues, to question, and sometimes to be contrarians. In our meetings, as you will see from this AI report, we agree on many things. We have three colors for the connections. One is gray for neutral agreement. One is green, agreeing strongly, and red, disagreeing. And when you see for example, mind map from yesterday's discussions, the primary color is gray. We agree about everything, more or less. And I think the purpose of a small organization, think tanks, is to question in substantive way. For example, we are questioning about current approach on long-termism and AI, but we know what is under the bonnet. We know how AI functions. It's not just questioning for the sake of questioning. I think this is the purpose of a small organization, to have the advantage comparing to big system of moving fast, tolerating sometimes the risks, and basically pushing the new ideas that may be later on adopted by big players. Let's say SDGs as guidelines for AI, guardrail, nobody's mentioning it. But we came after analysis, and maybe some big systems will take it over, and that would be ideal win-win solution, because it will boost the SDGs, and it will be practical tool for AI guardrails. That's the purpose of small organizations. And I think there is a vital relevance of governments and international organizations, big systems, to recognize the small systems, especially in developing countries. I just came from Africa, fantastic people, bottom-up solutions. I visited Kenya and Ethiopia, very agile, keen to learn, keen to move forward. Sometimes these people are not as practical and pragmatic to come to Geneva. It requires some filling the forms, scholarships, paradigms, whatever. But I think we need to move and to find these people, their energy and vitality of the national, continental, and global systems. And those part of the ecosystem, and I mentioned at the beginning, the example of our cooperation with UNCTAD was exactly that. We're probably not like big organizations, but people went out of their comfort zone and say, oh, let's work together, let us chat. And we created something useful. Therefore, that's that element which is badly needed in the global system, because some of our narratives are tired. We have to accept it. And we need to have the constant revisiting, questioning for somebody who can afford it. I can understand the international organizations cannot afford it because they have member states, negotiations, but one has to cultivate this system which will provide critical reflections with substantiation, with facts. Not just, today is easy to criticize, but that's very important.
And that's a really important point, thank you. And I love your traffic light system of grey, green, red. And so the Diplo Foundation and other small kind of organizations bringing in that bit of red, that bit of questioning, that bit of argument to get people thinking and possibly looking ahead for future issues that have to be broached, that might be uncomfortable, as you say. So let's turn now to the DCO. I don't know where you place yourself in terms of this kind of grey, green, red traffic light system, although it's not really a traffic light system, it has to be said. But, but if we build on your successful experiences so far, tell us, what role is the DCO placing in sustaining and expanding partnerships to ensure impact? And would you, where would you place yourself in terms of the green, red, grey?
So I really believe that by creating this new organization, member states, founding member state wanted to put some red and green together to create a new dynamic, to really answer questions in terms of how do we sustain a digital economy which is really inclusive. So we have very good examples so far. We have celebrated 3 years of existence, which is quite short, especially when it comes to socio-economic programs. It takes time to really be measured and quantified. But in a short term, in terms of establishing partnership, we have very good achievements. And it's probably due to the fact that we have kept the door open to all organizations, civil society, private sector, other international organizations, to really make sure that we are listening. The first outcome of this consultation and this open approach was the report we published last year, Bridging the Gap. And we will come back with other mechanisms like this to make sure we collect first a good understanding of what's happening in the digital economy globally, beyond the member state, beyond the members of the organization. So far, few elements that I would like to share. So we have been focusing on entrepreneurship. We have established, under the championship of one of the member states, the Kingdom of Jordan, a STRIDE association for entrepreneurs in the digital economy. That's one example. We bring together representatives from the member states to understand what are the requirements from a government perspective, but we also bring entrepreneurs, investors, VCs in the same place to discuss what are the requirements to create a more conducive environment to allow these startups to grow in their country and beyond. So that will be the driver of the digital economy from an entrepreneurship perspective. When it comes to creating shared principle, I think these are the elements we need to build more and more and fast to make sure that the future of the digital economy is at least open and positive for all of us. As a new organization, we have been granted also the status of observer at the UN General Assembly, which is for us kind of a recognition, but also we are this new kid on the block attending the meeting of this very well-established institution. So what we have done in that perspective was to, with the member states, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Bahrain, and Jordan, we have launched a UN group of friends on digital cooperation. So we have created this place in the existing institution to bring this red and green together. So it's not that we want to do something completely different, but we want to make sure that we bring this voice, this probably different voice of a group of 15 countries who have a clear agenda for the digital economy, clear guiding principle to grow from an inclusive and sustainable way, leveraging what is existing and also creating new platforms such as the STRIDE, Association for Entrepreneurs, and other projects that I can discuss later if we have the time.
Thank you very much. Sadly, I don't think we will have the time, but we can have those conversations offline. So let's just quickly get a little bit technical. Now, we all hate taxation. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not particularly fond of getting my tax bill in. But digital taxation is extremely important, clearly. And it's very prominent in global discussions right now. So we're going to bring in the South Centre right now with Carlos Maria Correa, who is going to be joining us, because the South Centre is contributing to shaping international frameworks that address the challenges linked to digital taxation and to ensure, again, which is so vital, that this digital taxation system is fair and balanced, and also, and what must be extremely complex, considers all the divergent interests and different levels of development in this space. So if I could bring you in, Carlos Maria Correa, that would be brilliant, and you could just give us a very brief explanation of what's happening there.
Yes, thank you very much for this important question. I will be very brief. In fact, the South Centre has been very active in this field. As you know, many companies are doing businesses in our countries through digital tools, but they are not paying taxes in our countries. And this is a major problem for developing countries who need these resources in order to develop infrastructure and for other projects. As you may know, negotiations have taken place under the auspices of the OECD on taxation, digital economy, which led to the so-called two-pillar solution, and now a draft convention is open for will be open for signature in relation to the so-called Amount A. But there are alternatives to what the OECD has developed. In particular, one has been created by the UN Tax Committee. This is called the Article 12B of the UN Model Tax Convention. So the South Centre has been the first organization, in fact, that has made estimates about what developing countries can gain from these two alternatives, the OECD alternative and the UN Tax Committee alternative, and has advised developing countries during the OECD negotiation, and also has advised what option is the best. Last week, in fact, we organized in Geneva an important conference with delegates from developing countries to consider which of these options is the best suited for developing countries and whether it is advisable or not to join the OECD convention. The South Centre has also elaborated on the idea of a new UN convention, United Nations Convention on International Tax Cooperation. And I must recall that on 22nd November this year, a historic resolution was adopted by the Second Committee of the UN General Assembly that calls for establishing an ad hoc intergovernmental committee for drafting terms of reference for United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation. This is a historic achievement. And of course, the South Centre will continue to support developing countries in the negotiation of this conference, which is of utmost importance for achieving the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us there. So let's now look at what WIPO is doing in terms of its priorities and international cooperation in the field, obviously, of intellectual property rights to ensure a just and equitable global digital landscape. Can you give us just a few examples in no more than 2 minutes?
Thank you very much, Isabel. Yes, in no more than 2 minutes. Let me start by saying the digital landscape is truly global. So it's such that no one entity can expect to be able to achieve anything on its own. That's why we need the cooperation. In terms of specific examples, let me use our host, UNCTAD, to show what we are doing with UNCTAD. And this goes as far back as 1999, when in WIPO, we established what we call the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy. This is a policy that enables cross-border dispute resolution, facilitating e-commerce. It's cost-effective, it's time-effective, and it beats going to court to resolve disputes. It's been operating very successfully since then in respect of domain names. Another example, again with UNCTAD, in 2022, the Academy of WIPO partnered with UNCTAD's e-trade support for women digital business entrepreneurs, and they started a masterclass series on IP and e-trade. This has been a very successful program. So, Madam Moderator, since I still have a bit of time, let me give you a third example. This is prospective. This is prospective. Our Director General has decided, and I'm referring to what the Deputy Secretary General of UNCDF told us about SDGs. Our Director General has decided next year WIPO's World IP Day theme will be on IP and the SDGs. Every year we celebrate a theme. Next year it's on IP and SDGs. And the idea will be to show what the intellectual property system does to contribute to implementation of the SDGs. This won't be just SDG 17 on partnerships, but 13 on climate change, or 4 on education, or 3 on global health, all the SDGs. That's the contribution the intellectual property system can bring to sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad you had that third point, and we'll really look forward to that. Now, the reason I was rushing everybody along is I was hoping maybe you might have a couple of questions here in the room. If you do have a question, do raise your hand or your country kind of label. And if we don't have any questions, then we shall be going to lunch on time, because we do have a question there. Thank you very much. From Jamaica.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. And it's not so much a question, but more so a comment. First, let me just thank UNCTAD for organizing this e-week. I think it's very important for us to have this discussion on issues pertaining to digital. One of the points that would have been mentioned is the need for a holistic approach when it comes to digitalization. And I mean, speaking from Jamaica's perspective, as a small and developing state, as you can appreciate, there are several challenges that we face. And we definitely have to look at it from a cross-cutting approach, looking at digital skills, looking at the infrastructure. So my comment would be just to encourage this further sort of partnership amongst international organizations and partners. I do know Dr. Kwako from WIPO and their work, and also from the Diplo Foundation. And again, just to encourage that as it relates to the E-Trade for All platform, if there could be some possibly dynamism on the dashboard, whereas all the examples that would have been put forward today, that member states are able to look at the dashboard and see what the different organizations are doing as it relates to digital, and they're able to pull from it best practices, but also know the point of contact that they can reach out to. So for example, if there is interest by a particular country in looking at IP again and digitalization, they're able to revert to the E-Trade for All platform and see what are ongoing projects and how they can tap into some of these opportunities. So I'll leave that there, but again, thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much for that very valid and important comment. Do we have any other questions or interventions from the floor? In that case, I'm going to turn to our speakers now for their final thoughts. And these are the really important ones, because I often find it's the things people say at the beginning of a panel that you really remember, and particularly the ones at the end. So condense those, please, noting that we want to leave maybe at about 5 past, if possible. And I will start with you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Well, this is a vast challenge that lands on many policy areas. You know, from the point of view of Latin America and the Caribbean, what I want to say, we're putting a lot of emphasis on the fact that Latin America and the Caribbean are in a low growth trap. Just let me give you this very eloquent figure. If you calculate, and we have done so, of course, the rate of growth, average rate of growth for Latin American countries from 2014 to this year, so we are in the month that we are ending this decade. In this decade, the region has grown at only 0.8% per year. That is even less than the 2% per year in which Latin America and Caribbean grew in the lost decade of the 80s. Less than half the growth of the lost decade of the 80s. So this is why we're putting a lot of emphasis on the issue. This is due to very low investment, very low productivity rate, almost flat. And then in this particular area, the issue of digital transformation is absolutely crucial. Extension services, the uptake and access of SMEs, and also the work on specific sectors. We have identified a list of around 14 sectors, many of them related with the energy transition, electrical mobility, but also services sectors like, exports of modern services, which is all based on the digital revolution, and a number of others which have tremendous potential for dynamizing growth. And the magic of it is that these are sectors that at the same time transform in a more sustainable and more inclusive direction, and the result would be if, productive development policies in the region have broadband, if you like, in the sense of having a range of sectors, would have the virtue of dynamizing this growth. So this is very much at the center of the ELAC digital transformation agenda, and we'll be very happy to strengthen partnerships and see how to focus and how to collaborate and do partnerships in many of these specific sectors, very micro vision, for which, of course, you need to mobilize resources and so on, in addition to all the transversal challenges that we have been discussing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So wonderful always to end with an invitation. Now, I don't know if Mr. Carlos Correa is still with us, but if he is, would you like to join us with your final thoughts? Maybe not. While we're waiting for him then, and I may get a little, no, he's unplugged from us. Let me go to you then, Mr. Nasser, in terms of the DCO, and maybe bringing in the E-Trade for All platform, not putting words in your mouth, of course, but what would be your final thoughts?
I think when it comes to the future of the digital economy, we all agree on the same point. Partnership will be essential. And the E-Trade for All is a perfect example on how this partnership can work, bringing together the diversified ecosystem involved in digital economy. So you said the last comment is the one people will remember, so I want to use this also to do some promotion and to use the e-week as it has to be designed to bring together people and to continue to create new ideas and explore how to address the challenges. So we will have at the end of the week the DCO Digital Space Accelerator. We will talk about misinformation in the digital world, women empowerment, digital rights. So join the conversation. I think one of the things this platform today and this week provides us is this place to really design the partnership we need to address challenges that sometimes we don't even understand exactly now, to make sure that we move fast and far in terms of an inclusive and sustainable digital economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And what about from your perspective, Edward Kwakwa?
Thank you. Thank you. Let me simply say WIPO remains committed to working with not just UNCTAD, but indeed with all the other E-Trade for All partners, as well as other interested stakeholders, to ensure that we unlock the full potential of innovation and creativity for a more inclusive and sustainable digital future. And in line with that, the organization has a vision which we will make sure we uphold. That vision is to help create a world where innovation and creativity from anywhere, not just from a few countries, innovation and creativity from anywhere is supported by the intellectual property system for the good of everyone. And that's a collective responsibility that WIPO intends to pursue with full vigor in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we'll end with you, Jovan Kabila, because maybe you can add a little bit of red to your final comment.
Sure. Thank you. I will add the 4 metaphors that we heard today. The first one is African saying, moving fast, moving slow. That we have to do in our partnership. Fast with a few and far with many. That's the first metaphor. Second metaphor is that metaphor of camera, we have to zoom in and zoom out. And this is the major issue. You have to zoom in on specific issues, which are concern of people, and zoom out to have always a wider perspective. This is, I would say, the major challenge for policymakers. Third one is that we should avoid trying to boil the ocean. We should take something what we can do. Like, we notice that we leave this type of meetings with some sort of cognitive dissonance, 150 sessions, but you cannot grasp it somehow. And we said, let's do a report which can even graphically show that. Therefore, let's be aware of the ocean, but not try to boil the ocean. And the fourth is about semaphores. And we need a bit of a more colorful semaphore. And I invite you to join the report from this session, which will be available in approximately 40 minutes with all colors. We'll see how many colors we are going to have, but we need more red colors. The current situation in the world is not easy. There are many problems, and we need a critical thinking as a generation, and we have to do it yesterday. And that's, I would say, a critical call. And also call for you to join this reporting, and a special thanks to you, Isabel, for really this fascinating moderation. We are finishing exactly on time. Bravo.
Yes.
As I say, I'm a horrible timekeeper at home, and I bring it to my work as well. So I think this has been a really important discussion, and I would just like to add my bit of red as we close, because there have been so many important issues that have been brought here. And then one saying that's come back again and again: fast with few people, far with many. I would just like to say, given where we are today when it comes to digital inclusion, I think maybe we need to take an extra step and see if we can also go fast and far with many. But with that, I'd like you please give a warm round of applause to our fantastic speakers, and if Carlos Maria can hear us, a big round of applause for him.
And for our moderator.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you. I used to be an anchor.